I have covered a number of BC stories on this podcast already, and if you missed any, simply go back to the archives of all episodes wherever you are listening right now and search BC and see what happens. Hi, I'm Chris May, writer, producer, and host of This Day in Weather History from the Weather Network in Canada. Wind is normally what BC storms are known best for, and they are powerful and oftentimes lethal to people and property. Like today, for instance, and what happened this day in weather history. Here we go again. Sing along if you know the words. On Monday, March 12, 2012, here we go. Powerful winds and even stronger gusts blasted away at Vancouver Island and the rest of the south coast. We've heard it before. Knocking out power to thousands and forcing the cancellation of many BC ferries' sailings. Sound familiar? Well, around this time you'd think, no biggie, take a ferry ride on any other day. Now, I can tell you this, because I did live there for a short time, and it is a premium quality drag when you're on one side but need to get back to the other side when this happens. It's your only way home, and now it's off the table. This particular storm hit the Campbell River area of Vancouver Island particularly hard. People in this area are used to windstorms, and they are used to winter storms, but when you have the police advising people to stay inside to avoid being struck by flying debris and rubble while trees were blocking most roads in the city, you have a serious concern. The gusts were actually powerful enough to, as reported by a local, blow the roof off a house, only to have it eventually land in a neighbor's yard. And then the power outages. This is common, but again, if you're in it, it's bad news. Remember that most of Vancouver Island is rural or even remote, so without electricity you have no pumps as well as no power. So, no lights or heat, and no water or flushing. You reading me now? So for the more than 78,000 BC Hydro customers on the island who lost power, it was particularly troubling. Unsafe for kids to even step outside their homes, the schools in the Comox Valley were closed. They called it a wind day, which is a play on the more common snow day excuse for taking that day off school. Meanwhile, another 40,000 customers lost power around the Lower Mainland and the Sunshine Coast as well. So let's stay on the Lower Mainland for a moment. In the massive and beautiful Stanley Park, several trees had come down, so it was closed to vehicle traffic for a short while as they cleared the lanes and cleaned the debris. Trees will be the most dangerous effect of windstorms in this part of Canada, as they are many and massive. And during this storm, they were falling just as police had warned they would. They fell on the streets, across sidewalks, in the park, and onto houses. And that brings me to the part in today's tale that is going to blow your mind. But first, remember that this day in weather history can be enjoyed a number of ways. Right now, for instance, you're listening to the full version of today's story on your favorite podcast provider, but there's also the daily podcast video short. They're shot right here in my podcast recording studio, so you get that perspective, and oftentimes they will include visuals from that day's event from when it happened in weather history. So after listening to the full story, go check out the podcast video short on television or online anytime at theweathernetwork.com/weather history. So about those falling trees onto houses. I told you that on the island, much of the regions outside the metropolitan Victoria area are mainly rural or remote, so trees are everywhere. It's why people choose to live there or move there. But as a result of this storm and its powerful wind, a 10-year-old Vancouver Island boy was lucky to be alive after he became trapped beneath a tree that fell onto his house. Meet young Laken Platt, junior gamer, who, like all other kids his age addicted to a screen while likely also wearing noise-canceling headphones, is totally immersed in his game. He was sitting on a footstool in his family's Campbell River mobile home when one of those massive trees was felled by a mighty gust. It split the trailer in half and pinned the young gamer Laken underneath. Understandably, his mom freaked out, but I gotta believe that everyone was freaking out with this young boy pinned beneath a trailer-crushing pine. But she maintained composure enough to run to a neighbor's house and call 911. When firefighters arrived, they acted fast, obviously, when with a carefully assembled plan, they freed the boy and reunited him with his mom. And then, the next day, a thankfully uninjured Laken was back up and around and thought he'd taunt the tree and Mother Nature that crushed him and his home by happily climbing on it for fun. Another miraculous happy ending on this day in weather history. Thank goodness. Tomorrow is March 13th, and we're talking bombs and blizzards. Sounds like a hard rock tune. Blizzards and bombs. It works both ways. Anyway, it was a brutal winter storm that moved in and took control of everything over the American Rockies across the Great Plains. Wind and snow lasted seemingly forever, so it qualified to be referred to as a blizzard. The bomb that blew up is that hook that I'm going to leave you with for now because I need way more time to explain this. And I will tomorrow on This Day in Weather History with me, your host, Chris May.